Hey, this is Jimmy Jive, and tonight is the final episode of my tribute to the heavy metal horror show Halloween. Tonight features an in-depth video interview with the founder and lead vocalist Brian Thomas, who explained in great detail the songs from their debut album, Don't Meddle with Evil. After the show, check out the album in its entirety. Now enjoy as Brian gives you a peek behind the curtain of the history of Halloween. All right, as you can tell, I've got Brian Thomas here from Halloween. They're going to be celebrating the 40th anniversary of their debut album, Don't Meddle with Evil, at Harpos. Right here. Yep, at Harpos on Halloween night.
Yeah, and it's the 42nd anniversary of the band.
And the 42nd anniversary of the band. So tonight...
And we did this 2 years ago for the 40th anniversary of the band. So
yeah, we did that. Yep.
Full circle.
So we're going to talk basically about the album, the songs, go over, here's some insight, some stories that Brian can tell about it. First thing I want to say about it is, when exactly was the album recorded and where?
It was recorded twice, actually. The first time we demoed and did an album, well, we did everything that's on the album in demo form at a studio up in Bay City. And we were recording in a junior high school, and we couldn't afford a hotel. We camped out in a tent, and it rained and it was cold, and we went in there and we did this, and it didn't come out very good. So we borrowed money from George Neal's mom and uncle, and we went into the disc in East Detroit at the time. Now it's East Point on 9 Mile, and we lived in the neighborhood. So one day we were just like cruising around. We were like, Recording Institute of Detroit, the disc. And we went in there, and they had never done a rock band, much less a metal band. They did mainly like gospel artists. And we talked to them, said, hey, you know, we live in the neighborhood, we want to do an album. We don't have much money. We went in there on a budget and did it all in like one 30-hour block. We recorded, mixed, did the whole thing in 30 hours. It was like in and out. We didn't have no idea what we were doing. We had a guy that was supposed to come in and help us produce. His name was Ed. We called him Edward. It was Edward. I don't know how to say his last name. But anyway, he knew everybody in KISS. And he was going to produce the album, and so we were all excited because, we got somebody from KISS coming in to produce, and we're in a real studio, not a high school, camping out in the cold, wet, ground. And then Ed never showed up. He got in some kind of trouble and never showed up. So we get in there with these guys that do gospel artists, and we had no idea what we were doing. We had never been in a real studio before, and so we just kind of winged it. And we love all the songs on there, but the production isn't what we wanted because we didn't know what we were doing. But somehow it ended up being a classic, in the metal world.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic, and there is nothing that was like it at that time locally or otherwise. There were bands out, there were hard rock bands, but nobody was doing the kind of metal you guys were doing at that time, especially when you later on took it out and you were touring it and stuff with the stage show and all that.
Everything on the album we recorded the first time, except we wrote Scared to Death in the studio, and I'll get into that. We'll go song by song. Sure. I'll tell you all the backstory on it. But speaking of producer from KISS, I'm sure everybody knows by now that Ace Frehley just passed away. And I told you the first time that we talked 2 years ago, the whole reason that Halloween exists and that I ended up in Michigan was because of KISS. I grew up in New Jersey, and I ended up married at a young age, and I lost a job working in cable TV. Cable TV didn't even exist in Michigan at the time, but it started in the mountain areas in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and New York. And it started out as just a way to get signal from, where you couldn't get antenna signal because of the mountains. So they would put antennas on top of the mountains and broadcast it down into the lower areas. And so I lost my job out there, and my ex-wife's parents moved to Michigan, and I was like, Well, Kiss wrote Detroit Rock City, so it's got to be a cool place, and we ended up moving out here. So I met Ace once or twice, just enough to shake hands and tell him that I, was a big fan, and that he was an influence to a lot of bands, including us. We covered Detroit Rock City,
Right.
and we're probably going to end up playing it at the show at Harpos in tribute to Ace. So I just wanted to say, Ace, we love you. Rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's start in on the album then, the actual tracks. Track 1, of course, is Busted. What can you tell us about Busted?
Busted was, it was kind of a combination of good cop, bad cop, and, being young and doing shit to get in trouble and getting caught. There's a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of reality. It's funny, one of the first times that I ever had trouble with the law, I had a blue dashboard cop light in my 70 Nova, and I took it out, and we were driving through Point Pleasant Beach, and it was summertime, and everybody would go to the beach and have a great time there. And a buddy of mine was in the car in front of us, and I turned the light on to pull him over. Well, the surprise was on me, because there was a real cop behind me, and I got pulled over. And they took my damn light away, and I had to go pay a fine. I never got my light back, and I was so bummed out. I still think about that now. I'm like in my 60s, and back then I was 17 driving for the first time.
Right.
Damn it, I got busted. Basically, it's kind of just playing with the words, about getting in trouble. The last line, or the last verse about you got caught with your panties down, was funny because as a young boy, there was a girl that lived up the street, and we were playing doctor, laying in my bed, and we weren't. I don't even think we were teenagers, and we were laying in my bed and like checking out each other's equipment.
Right.
And next thing I know, my dad came in the room and whacked me in the back of the head. And so anyways, we both got caught with our pants down, but I wrote panties down. But anyway.
That's very cool.
When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a cop. Obviously, I had the blue light. I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a preacher. Ended up doing neither of those.
Well, you're kind of a preacher.
But I have cops in the family. I had a stepdad that was a police officer, a couple of grandparents that were MPs, had a cousin that was a cop, and an uncle that was a cop. And so I've always been fascinated with law enforcement. And so this song Busted was a way to have cop lights on stage when we do it live.
Very, very cool. All right, let's move on to the next song of the album, which may be obvious, being the band Halloween and all that, and some of the themes you use. Scared to Death.
Scared to Death. So the studio where we recorded the album, like I said, we didn't have any professional production people. Had a couple of guys in there, an engineer and a producer that had never done a rock band before. So they're trying to mic the drums up and get tones and sounds and whatnot. And so Bill White was just noodling around on the drums, trying to, get all the microphones in the right positions. And he came up with the intro that ended up being the intro to Scared to Death. He was just noodling, and I was like, wait, what were you just doing? He's like, I don't know. I go, play what you were doing. He didn't remember what it was. I'm like, this? No, not that. This? Nope. What about that? Yeah, that's it right there. I go, I have an idea. And then George started playing the bass, and we wrote the song in the studio because we were micing drums up and getting drum tones. And I ran off and I started writing lyrics down, and basically it's just about coming to see the show and, the whole theme of the band Halloween, and, that come to the show and get scared to death.
Right.
But yeah, it all started with Bill noodling on the drums and that intro that's iconic. And Busted had an intro too. It's funny because we have so many songs that have like a distinct drum intro, but never as good as Painkiller.
Now, the next one, Justice for All. Now, does that tie in at all with Busted, with the whole police theme and all that? Or?
No, Justice for All. We lived in a house in Detroit. I talked about it before. Our stage and road manager, Spike, his grandmother owned a house on Shiawassee. It was between 7 and 8 Mile, between Telegraph and Lasser, out by the original Blondies. And we were living there, and the basement flooded, and we hadn't had our rent paid in a while, and Spike's grandmother was evicting us legally. Like, she actually went to court and got an eviction notice. And it was winter time, and we had no heat because the basement flooded so deep it was like up to our shoulders. And so the hot water heater and the heater and everything was underwater, so we had no heat. And it's like, you know, January, February, it's like the dead of winter. And so we're, all of us, I think there were like 12 or 13 of us in one bedroom upstairs. What we used for a refrigerator for our food was outside the window on the roof. We had like an igloo, and we would have our milk and eggs and whatnot outside this window. Well, anyway, so we're staying in this room, and Rick's wife at the time was waitressing at a restaurant not too far away, and I think she worked until 2 in the morning, and Rick had this old car that he had been driving ever since he moved from Baltimore to Michigan, and he never renewed his driver's license, so he was still driving on a Maryland driver's license. Well, he left to go pick her up from work, and he was gone for a really long time, and we're like, where the hell is Rick? He got pulled over and arrested for having a driver's license that had been expired for like 7 years.
Oh, jeez.
They impounded his car, took him to jail. His wife ended up walking back to the house, like in the middle of the night, in the dead of winter cold, telling us, oh my God, Rick got arrested. So we called this guy that I used to drive a limousine for to try to come up with bail money to get him out. And so while we were waiting for him to come over and take one of us to the jail to try to get Rick out, I sat with an acoustic guitar in this freezing cold room with like 10 or 12 of us in there, and I wrote Justice for All, and it was about Rick getting arrested.
Wow.
And at the time, even though I wanted to be a cop, at the time we were mad at the police.
Oh, sure. that seemed pretty bizarre.
We were like, they took him to jail for having an expired license, but it was 7 years expired.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, the next song is the one that I'm sure most of the bands in the band from the early days right up to this day probably remember the most, because you made a really cool video for it, or one of the videos you've made and all that. And of course, it became more or less your theme song. Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat. That was the one that everybody wanted to hear all the time. It was like our rock and roll all night party every day song. Basically, the lyrics were about the urban legends, about, you know, kids getting razor blades and apples and, you know, poison candy and whatnot. And, you know, nowadays all that stuff probably does happen because people are crazy. But back then, you know, you heard about it all the time, but you didn't know anybody that got a razor blade or, you know, poison candy, or, you know, the worst thing you got was pennies in your trick-or-treat bag, or, you know, popcorn.
Well, that, of course, and the parents back then used to go through it and check everything out.
And so the song was basically, you know, witches and warlocks, demon spirits, beggars and liars. You know, it was just about trick-or-treaters. Everybody dressing up for Halloween and going out trick-or-treating. And
where was that video shot?
It was at Harpos. And
Harpos?
Funny story, there's a kid in the front, studded bracelets and short spiky hair, and he's going crazy right in the front row, and he was like 12 or 13 at the time. And a couple years later, not even a couple years later, like later that year, that same kid knocked on our door. We were living in East Detroit. We had armor guard up because, you know, we had all the gear in the house, and our manager Cecil didn't want anybody to break in and steal our stuff. So he had armor guard on all the windows and doors. And anyway, doorbell rings, and it's this kid that was in the video, and he's subbing for our newspaper boy. And we were getting ready to go play a matinee show, so we were all decked out in makeup, our hair's roosted up, we're in stage clothes. And he said that encounter coming to our front door changed his life. Turned out that little kid grew up to be Jeff Davey, who was Joe Nieport's right-hand man, and he basically ran Freedom Hill for years, Uncle Sam Jam, Stars and Stripes, like all the festivals that Joe Nieport did. Jeff Davey was like the guy that ran all those. And I ended up working at Freedom Hill, and that little kid ended up being my boss. And he would tell everybody about that story, how coming to our door and seeing basically Detroit's version of Kiss open the door and, you know, give him money for his friend's paper route, how he ended up in the music business. And he would tell everybody that story, but man, he never gave me a raise.
Now, were any of the kids, like in the beginning of that video and all that, were those friends of the friends of the band, or girlfriends and whatnot?
They were my daughter, Rick's daughter, George's nieces and nephews. It was all little kids that were connected to the band family-wise, and I think a couple of fans.
That's very cool.
Came up and rang the bell. There's no doorbell on this backstage door at Harpos, but there is one in the video.
The next song, of course, is another one that seems very thematic with the band and all that, with the themes of some of the other songs. The Wicked Witch.
Yep.
Does that
We've
play?
been accused by record labels when we were trying to shop all of our stuff to major labels and whatnot. Oh yeah, Halloween. Ooh, that hasn't been done before. Death and pumpkins, kill, 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 skulls and demons, and you know, we weren't trying to be Alice Cooper. We weren't trying to be Kiss. In fact, when we started out, both of them were kind of going to the disco phase.
Right.
Alice Cooper was doing disco. Kiss dropped their makeup, and the way we started out, I told you in the last interview, was very generic. We started out at Halloween time, had posters on the wall. Naked girls, Playboy. It was Playboy and skulls and spider webs. And when we were starting out, we had people come over to practice, and they thought it was a stage show. So when we started playing out, we just took all that crap with us, and it became a stage show. So we weren't, you know, I mean, we loved Alice Cooper and Kiss. Kiss was one of my favorites. Right. Paul Stanley's my favorite singer. But we weren't trying to be them, but we kind of took the torch and ran with it when they went in a different direction. We just kind of generically kept the horror theme going. Well, the Wicked Witch fit right in. My daughter would give me crap sometimes because I would dedicate it to my ex-wife, who was her mom, because, you know, we got a divorce, so what can I say? It wasn't written about her, though. It was actually written about Tipper Gore. Which is why,
right, that makes sense.
When people would say, well, who the hell is the Wicked Witch of metal? That doesn't make any sense. Well, if you know anything about the PMRC, it makes all kinds of sense, because the Wicked Witch of metal was Tipper Gore. She was trying to get all the rock and metal bands shut down for being satanic. And so basically I just took the theme of the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz, and I incorporated Tipper Gore into it, and the Wicked Witch.
That makes total sense. The next song on the album, of course, is the title track. And getting back to what you just said about Tipper Gore and all that, and how she labeled all these bands satanic and all that, here's a song where the message is just the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You're saying don't meddle with evil, like don't use Ouija boards or anything like that.
And George and I had to go to Christian rallies and defend the album, the song, the title, the theme of the band to preachers that tried to lump us in with all the satanic bands. We were fans of Stryper. When we came out, the reason we called the band Halloween, and again, reverting back to the last interview, so if you don't know, go back and watch the original interview. We got together at the end of October, and we wanted to call the band Halloween. But Chuck was best friends with Mickey St. Clair, who was in Seduce at the time, and they were writing the song Halloween, which we later covered and recorded on our third album. And Chuck didn't want to name the band Halloween because he thought that they would think we were piggybacking off of their idea. So we called the band Bitch for a year because we looked like a bunch of tough girls. And after Chuck left, a year later on Halloween at the Falcon Lounge, we decided to rename the band Halloween. On stage, 2 minutes to midnight, on Halloween night, we became Halloween. And all of a sudden, Ron Baltras, who was one of the co-owners of Harpos, comes up to us with a magazine and goes, "Have you heard of these guys? Who's this?" This is like a year later. "Halloween from Germany." What? Who's this? And I read this article. "Why did you guys name your band Halloween?" Well, we didn't want to be named after a movie, and we knew there was a band in the United States called Halloween. So we changed the A to an E and decided we wanted to be like Merciful Fate and Slayer and Venom and go down the satanic road.
Which was odd because musically they were nothing like that.
No, but that was what they were trying.
They were trying to emulate
the name
that?
Halloween was supposed to lump them in with those bands.
Oh, right.
And so I came up with the title, Don't Meddle with Evil. I thought, oh, that's clever. And it became the title of the album.
It's a very good play on words. Okay, moving on. I'm sorry.
And we weren't trying to shove religion or Christianity down anybody's throats. I believe in freedom to be whatever you want to be. But we just felt like we don't want to be in that category and try to, jump on the Satan bandwagon. So, like I said, it was just a clever title and a positive message. So that's why we did it.
Yeah, because I'm sure Cooper probably went through that with his stage shows early on and stuff, and Kiss too.
A lot of people associate Halloween, the holiday, with satanic and evil and whatnot.
Pagan.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I just like trick-or-treating, even as a grown-up.
I like the candy. Okay, the next song, which is really interesting, I'm not sure how many people really knew this when this album came out, that it was a cover song, because I didn't, because it's like, I obviously never heard of the band that did it originally in Jersey.
It's our adopted bastard son.
Yeah, and it was such a great song. It fit in musically and thematically with everything else you did. What a nice place. And you even did a video for it.
Yeah.
What's the storyline behind that?
Growing up in New Jersey, there was a really kick-ass rock music scene in all the clubs. And there was a band called Days, and their manager, Tom Wally, went on to be first he was the A&R, and then I think he was the president of like Elektra or one of the major labels. He moved to Hollywood, but the band Days played out there, Rat Race Choir, Flossie, Trigger. There were all these great bands on the Jersey Shore, and I lived near the boardwalk, and every summer you couldn't wait to go to the boardwalk to go to the haunted houses. Like here in Michigan, haunted houses happen in October, Halloween time. We waited for the beginning of summer. When the boardwalk opened, there was always a new haunted house. The Haunted Mansion at Long Branch, the Brigantine Castle down in Atlantic City, and the haunted house at Point Pleasant Beach, which is where I would go because it was close to home. And there was a bar there called the Riptide and another bar called the Silver Dollar, and I discovered this band Salty Dog. And to me, look, chills just thinking back to my youth. Their guitar player, Eddie Jelly, was my Randy Rhoads. He was amazing, and I was just captivated. I was like hypnotized watching this guy play guitar. And I would go every chance I could. I'd sneak in. The Riptide was like a rowdy bar. It was a tiny little bar right on the boardwalk on the beach, and there were fights all the time. And they're in there and they're covering Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull, and and Paul McCartney and Wings, and like all these songs back then were heavy, like Wings,
Right.
Beware My Love. They'd play that on the Himalaya ride on the boardwalk. And
Right.
strobe lights would be going. It's like, oh, I can't believe it, and they'd be playing all these cool songs. And then they started playing their originals, and What a Nice Place, they would open the original set with What a Nice Place. And I had a TV show before MTV existed called Jersey's Best Rock, and I worked for a cable company that I talked about earlier.
Right.
And I did this program where I would bring in local bands, and I had them on my show several times, so I became friends with them. And I was there when they were writing songs, and I loved the band. They were like Van Halen to me, And they almost made it. They went to LA all the time. They tried to get a record deal. They would actually stop here in Detroit. They played Trax and Silverbird all the time. They became friends with Arthur Penhallow from WRIF.
Okay.
So Arthur knew who Salty Dog was when I was still a pup in New Jersey. And
so that was 70s, obviously.
that was in the 70s, yeah, like 76, 77.
Yeah,
And I moved here to Michigan in 79. And so when I came out here, I was like, oh my God, Arthur Penhallow knows Salty Dog. And then they ended up breaking up. They ended up breaking up because they didn't get the record deal they were trying to get. And a couple of the guys ended up leaving the band, and then they had new people, and it wasn't the same. They ended up breaking up, and I reached out. I had become friends with them because they were on my show. I wish I had tape from back then, but when I lost my job over my back injury, the cable company destroyed all of my tapes. I had such good video of all these bands.
Wayne Campbell before Wayne's World.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when MTV launched, before the Buggles video killed the radio star and all that, I got invited to the MTV launch for Detroit at the Renaissance Center. Like, they did several of them, but the one at the Renaissance Center, I was invited to it because I had done a version of MTV before MTV even existed. I had local bands on. I had Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. I had a couple, not too many bands had video back then, but I had video from whoever I could get. And the rest of the time I would play records like a radio station. And I had 3 easels with pictures from Circus and Hit Parader and Cream Magazine. I'd sit and I'd cut all these pictures out, and we'd do fades to all the pictures while their songs were playing. That was my thing. But anyway, so What a Nice Place was written about the band house that they lived in New Jersey on the beach, and it was haunted. They would hear things. And,
oh, wow.
And so they wrote the song, and I'm like, well, a song about a haunted house, that fits right in with Halloween. So when they broke up, I reached out to Eddie, the guitar player, and Paul, the keyboard and rhythm guitar player, who wrote the song, and said, I'd really love to cover the song and record it. And they gave their blessing, and so we did it, and it became a staple for us. And we did a video. Some of it was shot at our band house in Inkster. Some of it was shot at the Penn Theater in Plymouth. Some of it was shot at the Elmwood Cemetery, downtown Detroit.
Right.
And now people, a lot of people don't know. They think it's our song, and it's become like one of our biggest
exactly.
songs.
You guys, I don't know, I don't remember back then you guys going out of your way saying it wasn't, or saying it was.
No.
You just played it.
We had a habit of Doug Podell played it on Rated 8 on WLLZ, and our phone started ringing off the hook. People are like, you guys are on the radio, and we're like, we can't be on the radio. We don't even have anything recorded. What, does somebody sneak in and grab a practice tape or something? So we turn on wheels, and it's Doc and Breaking the Chains. And we're like, wow. We had already retired that song. It was one of the cover songs that we did. But, yeah, so there were a few cases where we played songs that people thought was us or didn't realize that a song was a cover song.
Well, it's not wanting to mention them too much, but Seduce did the same thing when they were doing some of that European metal that nobody heard of here because it wasn't out.
So did Metallica.
And Metallica,
nobody knew who Blitzkrieg was. Or,
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of, Budgie kicks ass.
Yep, Budgie's another one.
All right, let's move on to.
We even covered a Seduce, and that's another thing that made us unique. We covered local bands. Instead of going on and covering an Alice Cooper song, which we did, or a Kiss song, which we did, we also covered bands that we admired. Seduce,
Sure.
Terrorist, Salty Dog.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, let's go on to the next track on the album. And there again, this is another one that more or less, I would assume, would fit the theme of the band and the whole idea behind the band, or partially. Haunted.
Haunted. This started out with George just thumping on the bass. Doom, 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 doom. And then he came up with the guitar riff, George did. And I was like, wow, that's creepy.
George came up with the guitar riff?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And I was like, that's a haunting riff. I'm like, haunted. And basically just wrote it about, again, our theme, haunted houses, being possessed.
So there wasn't anything directly about haunted, like, you know, one of your band houses, something was haunted or
I was
anything?
just inspired by a creepy bass and guitar riff.
Oh,
Thought
okay.
Haunted would fit this music, and from my crazy imagination came the lyrics.
Okay. She's a Teaser. Now, this sounds like a total band, 80s metal type of thematic
Drink
song.
the water for this one.
I'm sure there's a good story behind this.
There is, and my girlfriend and all of my exes hate it, but it's the truth. And there's a Seduce tie-in. This is a long story.
That's all right.
So, when I first moved to Michigan, I was in a band called Mesmerized, with Z instead of S, Mesmerized. And the guitar player's house is where we rehearsed. And his younger sister ended up being my second wife after a while. She was only like 15 or 16 when she would come down and watch us play. And the reason I bring that up is because there were other girls that would come over. I don't even know who they were. There was a girl named Grace and a girl named Lisa, and they would come and watch us practice. I think they were friends with somebody else in the band, and they would watch us. Well, one night I got a ride back to my apartment by Lisa, and my wife at the time was out of town, and we never got along that good. I don't think my daughter was born yet when I wrote this. I'm not sure. It was a long time ago.
Yeah,
But I was living in this apartment, and my wife was out of town, and this Lisa girl drove me back and asked if she could come up and use the bathroom. Next thing I know, she's like all over me. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know you were, you know, into me like that. And like I'm thinking I'm married, but I'm arguing with my wife, and we're probably going to get a divorce, and this girl was cute. And man, she did everything but go all the way.
Okay.
So I wrote this song about her. She's a teaser. Fast forward to later on, we're renting PA system and lights from Seduce. Everybody thought we were at war with each other.
Right.
We knew each other.
feud.
We were friends. It was basically the fans.
They
You were
created
either
that
a
whole
Seduce
feud.
fan or a
Yeah.
Halloween fan.
Yeah.
You know, what do you? It was funny because I would go see Seduce at Blondie's, and I would see Halloween fans there, and they would see me, and they would try to avoid me. They'd go all over the bar trying to get away, and I'd keep following them around, and they were, oh my God, there he is again. And then I'd go up to him, and they'd be like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, same thing you're doing. I'm checking out Seduce, man. I love Seduce. But so we rented their sound and lighting system to play a show at the Falcon. And Steve, the sound guy for Seduce back then, was engineering and doing our sound check. And we get done with sound check, and I went out to tell him that it sounded good and thank you, and I can't wait to do the show. And he tells me, yeah, man, he goes, I really like that song, She's a Teaser. So I told him the story, the inspiration for it. Turns out that Lisa was his high school sweetheart and became his wife. And he was seeing her when she came back to my apartment and inspired this song. And when he asked me about Lisa, I told him her last name, and boy, that was a mistake. We did not sound good that night.
Did not sound good that much.
But I'm pumped.
Okay, let's move
Love
on.
you, Steve.
Let's move on to.
He's the house engineer at the Aretha Franklin Theater down on the riverfront.
Oh, okay, so he's
I
still
saw
in
him. In
business.
fact,
Okay.
I was working for Vince Neil, and he was there, and we were cordial.
Okay.
And years have passed. I don't even know if they're still together. But nothing happened.
Water under the bridge. Okay.
She's a teaser. Next.
The next song, of course, is another one. It totally fits in with the theme and all that. And some people I've heard have said, "Oh, yeah, man, they got this idea from a television show," which I'm not even sure was on yet.
It wasn't.
Tales of the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt. It was not a TV show when I wrote the song,
Yeah.
but it was inspired by a movie, Tales from the Crypt, which was from the 70s. It had, I think, 3 or 5, what do they call them, vignettes?
Yeah, yeah,
There's like
Awesome
little,
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah.
It was old and creepy, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so cool. And again, George came up with the guitar riff for Tales from the Crypt, and when I heard it, I was like, ooh, that's creepy too, just like Haunted. And I thought about that movie. There's, people don't know this, but there's also a hint of patriotism in it, because it was also loosely inspired and dedicated to soldiers that had not come home. I always tried to keep the theme of the band and make it creepy and spooky and whatnot, but there's a little reality in all of my songs. If you read the lyrics and dig a little deeper, you'll find the little tidbits
Right.
of other things that are not just, obvious haunting,
Right,
or
sure.
trick or treat or whatever. Like I said, Trick or Treat was about something that actually would be on the news. I up until recently, I was very inspired by the news.
Right.
But yeah, Tales from the Crypt. George wrote the music, and Rick played the hell out of it, and I just wrote some creepy words inspired by the movie and the military.
Well, what's interesting about it, because you've mentioned this twice now, that George wrote the riff. George being the bass player. Would anybody have really
He started
known that
out on
outside the
guitar.
band?
Probably not.
You know, because I wouldn't
I
know
can
about
tell
that.
you which one, and I mean, if you have the album, I wrote the main riff to Busted, George wrote the main riff to Scared to Death, I wrote the main riff to Justice for All, Rick wrote the main riff to Trick or Treat, which was inspired by Bill's drum intro.
Right.
Which is funny because the U.S. government does not give writers credit to drummers, which I think is very unfair.
Right.
But because the riff for that song was inspired by the drum intro, we gave Bill the writer's credit. We felt that he deserved it. The Wicked Witch was George and Rick. Don't Meddle with Evil was my riff. What a Nice Place was Salty Dog. Haunted was George. Rick, everybody contributed
Right,
stuff to it, but
interpreted the other part.
main
Sure,
riff was,
sure.
was George. She's a Teaser was me. Tales from the Crypt was George and Rick, but mainly George's initial riff, and To Fight the Beast was Rick. And it's funny, I just noticed that they screwed up. It's To Fight the Beast, and Pure Steel Records left 2 off of here, and I never noticed that before. It just says Fight the Beast.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of noticed that too, because on
The things you find out when you're doing an interview for a podcast.
yeah, because on here it's the same way, and I'm like going, no, I remember I remember when the
Is it
original.
To Fight on there?
No,
or
it
is
just says Fight the Beast.
How
But
did
I
we not-
remember.
how did we not catch that in post?
I know, and
Don't they
I.
send a proof to you before they make these things?
Yeah, you would think,
would
and
think.
I do remember
They
because.
also outlined my logo. I designed this logo.
Right.
All right, I got to give proper credit. there was a guy named John Saltarelli who was on our road crew. We called him Diamond because he had expensive taste. So even though he was in a New Jersey and New York hardcore band called Lethal Aggression, my brother will love that I gave him a plug. He passed away, but he lived with us at the Shiawassee house that was Spike's grandmother's. And he started to draw a logo for us. I think he had like the H and the A and this thing, and we didn't know what it was. Is it a vine? Is it a moon?
Mm-hmm.
It's just an abstract thing. It's partly vine, part moon. Well, anyway, he crumpled it up and threw it in the garbage. He didn't like it, and I happened to see it right before I poured coffee grounds in the garbage can, and I pulled it out and I looked at it and I liked the shape of the H, so I finished the logo. And anyway, when Pure Steel put this out, they traced a little line around my letters. On the original one, that's not there. But, you know, just a little extra.
That's
And
neat.
it's on the shirt like that too,
Mhm.
with the lines.
Okay, getting to the last song, and you just mentioned that they left a two-part out,
Yeah,
because
two
I
fight
remember
beats.
that. Yeah, I remember that because the original version I had of this, which like I said earlier, I wish I still had, was the cassette.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really into vinyl that much at the time. I did, but cassette, man, because we were all in our cars, man, jamming, rocking, and all thing. So I had the cassette, and I remember that and wearing it out and all that, and that would have probably been. Obviously, it wasn't remastered or anything like some of this stuff might be now. Getting it at plug Rock of Ages, the original Rock of Ages.
And Rock of Ages is still rocking.
It's still rocking and still doing that, but he doesn't have any of the cassettes either.
No.
But
I have a few.
do you still original ones?
Yeah, but I won't sell them.
No, I
think
hope not.
I think I have 2 of the orange cover, like the very first
Right.
one, which was kind of like we were having trouble getting our product back from the pressing plant, so we had our printer make like a J card. In fact, he forgot to put the logo. Like if you have one of the original ones and you unfold it, it's supposed to say Halloween, the logo, and the Heavy Metal Horror Show are trademark
Right.
of the band Halloween. He forgot to put the Halloween logo on it, so there's a blank space, and the Heavy Metal Horror Show are trademark. But I think I have like 2 or 3 of those that are unopened, and we shrink wrap those with a heat
Oh yeah,
gun.
yeah.
Like
my
we did.
hand, yeah.
We had to put the cards in,
Mhm.
put the cassette in, and then shrink wrap it ourselves. I think
Yeah.
I have 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah, the
unopened.
shrink wrap party and
Yeah.
stuff. All right, you do this, you do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know other bands that had to do
Yeah.
that also. So, getting back to that song, "To Fight the Beast," another one that's very thematic and like you said, some of the Christian Bible thumpers.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know, if they would have really read into that, it's like there again, it's not pro-devil, it's anti-devil. Fight the
Right.
beast. It's almost like a shout at the devil. It's
Right.
that same kind of thing.
And when I wrote this, I wasn't thinking horror theme at
Right.
all. The beast wasn't supposed to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
This song is bizarre origin. Again, just like Don't Meddle with Evil, there is faith-based,
Right.
theme to it. I had a dream, and there's 2 songs on the second album. There's another song called Revelation 23:1, The Dream. I had 2 dreams that became songs. This dream was about Jesus coming back to save us, except that he came back as Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, okay.
And he had the sword, and he was muscles, and was wearing the loincloth. He was
Come back.
he was
like
just
that. We
like
don't know yet.
right.
Yeah.
He was Jesus was Conan the Barbarian,
Okay.
and boom, there's the song. He raised the sword up high, peering out as like what window? Jesus did he have a window? Did they have windows back? I have no idea.
Supposed to be coming in, riding
I
in on a
wasn't
cloud. Right.
But it wasn't. I mean, I even say it. I'm not saying you should go to church or listen to
Right.
the priest. Just remember, he's still out there. He's gone to fight the beast with his sword. It was theatrical and fantasy. That was it. It was Jesus as Conan the Barbarian.
Okay. Now, let's finalize a little bit on the album.
One thing,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Going back to She's a Teaser,
Sure.
I almost forgot this because I had to tell you the story about my teaser.
Okay.
When we were in the studio, they were messing around in the control room with the tapes, and the tape is like flying, and you know, we were on a time limit, so we had to hurry up and do all these songs. And so they'd be jumping from one song to the next, and we'd be doing guitar tracks and leads on one, and then we would jump over. How do you feel about singing right now? Oh, yeah, I can sing right now. So, all right, well, let's skip forward to this song or that song. So we were kind of going all over the place on the reel. So the tape is spinning really fast, and all of a sudden he hits stop, and the tape just barely hits the heads on the recorder, and you hear blah, 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 and you can hear all the noise from the tape going across the heads, and there's like a slide, and I was like, what is that? They're like, oh, don't worry about that, that's just the noise, you know, when the tape stops going across the heads. I had the volume up, I should have had the volume down. I go, no, I like that. What? Can you do that again? Oh, yeah, all I gotta do is leave the volume up and it'll do it every time. I go, I want that on the album. What? That's just like noise, it's stupid. I go, no, I want that at the beginning of She's a Teaser. So what you hear at the beginning of She's a Teaser was just the tape running at full speed and then hit stop with the volume up, and it's just noise from the other songs sliding across the heads.
That's pretty neat. The last thing I want to ask you about the album, and I'm not sure you'll even answer this because it's a kind of I think, a mystique type thing that I'm sure insiders in the band, obviously you guys know, and maybe some of your fans, hardcore fans, know. At the beginning of the song, Don't Meddle with Evil, there's backwards message, which was very typical with a lot of bands that were using that kind of theme. Are you at liberty to tell us what that was?
I don't know, should I...
Or do you remember what that was?
I know exactly what it was. I'm the one that did it.
Okay. I like I said, I don't know if you want to keep that mystique or at this point it would matter.
I don't know, what do you think? Let me ask my bodyguard.
Well, I'm curious too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you don't know? You don't know what it is?
No, I know what he's talking about, but I don't know what he
You
said.
don't know what he's saying, that's what I'm saying.
Well, it has a lot to do with the title of the album.
I imagine it would.
I mean, that's why it's on that song.
Yeah.
I can't tell.
I knew it. I had to bring it up. I didn't think you would.
But I do have another funny story.
Okay, go ahead.
When we did The Wicked Witch, we had Rick do the witch's laugh at the beginning. And we had him, the first time we did it, when we demoed it, we were at that high school up in Bay City. And we made him go all the way down the hall and around the corner and all the way at the end because we wanted to get a good echo on that laugh, right? So Bill would stand outside of the control room, and George was down at the next corner, and I would tell them when the tape was rolling, and they would go, and then Rick would do the laugh.
So it was like Wayne's World.
Yeah. So it was like me, then Bill, then George, and then Rick would do the laugh, and the microphone, we had like 7 mic cables going all the way from the control room way down this hallway, right? Rick nailed it on the first one. We made him do it like 20 times.
Now, was that, whose idea was it?
Do it again, Rick, we didn't get it.
Now, did he have the best voice to do a cackling witch, or do you just want to?
I think he was making fun. You know, we were all fans of The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
I think he was just being funny.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And I was like, oh, you should do that at the beginning. So he
And this was before bands.
I don't know.
This was obviously before bands would sample. Would take samples and shit. You
had
to find an old.
We made our own samples.
Yeah. You would have had to go out and find an old soundtrack from The Wizard of Oz and get that part and go.
We weren't sure if we'd have the copyright.
And there again, sure.
And one of us may have done the laugh better than him, but we just went with Rick, and we thought we were practical jokers. We thought it was funny to make him do it over and over and over again.
You probably weren't even recording.
No, he got it the first time. We were not recording it after that. And then when we did the Breaking Glass for Busted, we did that outside the front door of the disc where we recorded the album. And we had a big window that we took a hammer and broke it. And then we left the glass there, and they got mad at us because we didn't clean the glass up. Whoops.
It's part of the old rock and roll show, the whole thing, the shenanigans from the old days. Now,
and all the sound effects at the beginning of
Yeah.
Haunted.
yeah.
That a lot of that's Rick too, going caca caca, like just making all kinds of weird noises over the beginning of Haunted.
Oh,
there was nothing to it. It was just like
that's very cool.
whatever weirdness we came up with.
Okay, and the final summation of the album from.
By the way, we're gonna play this whole thing at Harpos on Halloween night, 2025. So if you can't be there, hopefully somebody will videotape
it. God has to. As far as, like you said, the original recording that was put out on vinyl and cassette, and as opposed to what this company has done, how much better in your mind is this version than the original version? Do you think they did much more with it? Were they able to do much more with it as far as the original masters or that kind of thing?
I don't really know a lot about the technology. I know they did a little remastering.
But I mean, were you happy with it?
Some people like the original better.
Right.
I would be happy if we could re-record it from scratch, because our tapes, and I was telling Tim this on the way over here to do this interview, our tapes ended up at a studio in Atlanta, and the studio went out of business, and they tore it down and built a hotel where the studio was. And Bruce Springsteen, Leonard Skinner, Beyonce, Dolly Parton, like all these big stars recorded at the studio. And our tapes were down there because we had a guy that was going to have them remixed and remastered, and he passed away. He played keyboards in Halloween for like 2 shows at Harpos back in the day, and he took them there, and then he died, and we didn't know where they were. And Rick just recently found out what studio they were at, and then we found out that the studio was torn down, and all the tapes that were at that studio were donated to the University of Georgia in their archive, their music archives. And so we contacted them, and they were going to try to find the tapes for us, but they said that there's thousands of tapes there.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, to go through the library and find them, they would try to help us. And then Laken Riley was killed on their campus shortly after I reached out to them, and so we never really followed up with him. And Jason Hartless Jr., who is Ted Nugent's drummer, lives in Nashville now. He was going to try to locate the tapes, but as of right now, we haven't been able to locate them. And I don't know how much we'd be able to get out of them now. We love the songs, but you know, the production.
Well, not only that, the tapes deteriorate.
Right. Yeah.
After
being
all
that.
those years.
Yeah.
I always told George I would love to go back in the studio and redo them. And I know that people like the original, so what I wanted to do, something that I don't think anybody's ever done before, I could be wrong, I don't know everybody out there, but I wanted to keep this as is, the original version, not necessarily the remix, but the original version, and then do the whole album over again and have 2 discs.
Right.
One the original, Then and Now.
But what would you mean by that as far as that?
That way we're not destroying the history,
Right,
the
the
legacy.
original.
People like the original one, they've got the original one, and then here's one with modern technology and how we do the record now.
Yeah, but the thing about that,
play,
I mean, I get that, and you're right. Other people have done that.
When we
There have
do
been a lot
live
of bands that
shows
have
now-
done that. Now, when you're saying that, are you saying record the parts? You're gonna get Rick back to play all that stuff again, and everybody to play their parts over again.
If Rick would do it, Don Gurrier does a pretty good job of emulating Rick's parts.
Okay.
He's a good doppelganger for Rick.
Oh, okay, all right.
And Rick likes Don. And TJ, who originally when Don and TJ played together, TJ was just playing rhythm, but TJ's an amazing lead guitar player. And now TJ and Don are splitting the solos and whatnot at our live shows.
Right.
But if Rick wanted to come back and do it, I would do that with the original 4 of us. But just the technology is so much
of
better.
course.
And when we play live, there's so much more intensity and power, and and you know the
Well,
song sounds so good live now.
Yeah,
I
well,
would
yeah,
love to put that-
the technology is the big
Yeah.
difference from when
I'd
you
love
played
to
in the
capture
80s
that.
and all that stuff, as far as the instrumentation, the amplification, and all that. Tell us a little bit about this this show on Halloween night. Tell us what's going to take place as far as you've got some opening acts, obviously. I don't know if I'm going to leave this in or not, but I'm kind of a little disappointed that you got tribute bands playing, to be honest with you.
Well, the reason for that is because they're good friends of ours, and
I figured that
and the
much,
tribute
yeah.
scene seems to
Right.
bring people in, and
Yeah,
and Roosevelt, who used to own Blondie's, now owns Harpos.
Yeah.
And he's had a tough time getting people in there because, you know, Harpos has a reputation as world famous,
Yeah.
but it also has a reputation of being in not the greatest neighborhood.
correct.
And there have been incidents there in the past. In fact, our No One Gets Out album was named because of an incident at Harpos. We were on stage playing, and when Ron and Paul and Kurt owned the place, Ron came running up to the stage and he's going like this, and I'm like, "What's that?" "Stretch. Keep playing, keep playing. We don't have any more songs ready. You know, we've only rehearsed it. Keep playing. We don't have any more songs. Play one over again." "Why? What's going on?" "There's somebody driving up and down outside the bar shooting at the front door.
Right.
We don't want anybody to leave."
Right.
Not that you have to worry about that now.
No,
Yeah,
That's
no.
a long time ago.
Yeah,
Right.
that was back in 90 when
Right.
this happened.
Right.
And so they wouldn't let anybody leave. What do? That inspired me to write a song called No One Gets Out.
Right.
Everybody's like, "Oh, no one gets out. Oh, you guys are copying off the Doors. No one
Right.
gets out alive." No,
Right.
no one gets out of Harpos.
That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. But the only reason I bring that up, it's nothing against those bands because they're all good, and I understand the thing. But to me, it's like, here you guys are an original band, been around for 42 years and doing this, and what does that say to you as far as like the rock scene? Are there no new upcoming bands? I don't necessarily have to be
It's a
metal.
shame.
Original bands that could be doing this. And then when you did your 40th anniversary of the band, you did have one tribute band, but you had Animal that was an original band. Now, was that just not an option? Were there no bands available to do that? Or was it strictly because Roosevelt needed to bring more people
I
in?
think it's because we need to get people in there and,
Okay.
and re-jumpstart the rep at Harpos.
Okay.
And the bands are great. George was heavily inspired by Robin Trower and the
Sure,
Who. John
sure.
Melissa was his
Yeah, I
favorite bass
understand
player.
that.
But he loved Robin Trower. So there's a tribute band called Bridge of Sighs, and they're from out near where George lives, and sometimes he'll sit in with them at the rock room that he runs.
Right.
So he put them on, and then there's a Pantera tribute called Domination, and this kid is 13 or 14 years old. If you close your eyes, you think Dimebag's up there playing.
No way.
He
Wow.
is amazing.
Did you ever hear Kayla Kent?
Wow.
Sorry?
Kayla Kent on YouTube. It's a girl who's Dimebag.
Wow.
Yeah, I had heard about
she's
that.
amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
check her
Well,
out.
that-
But this kid is so good.
See, that to me that's workable because I mean metal,
And
hard rock, and all that.
He's a young kid, so he's got his whole future ahead
Yeah.
of him. And so this is a chance to showcase his
He's
talent.
getting to step
Yeah.
up on
Yeah.
a big stage
Yeah.
and all that.
And they do a really good job. And then Sins of a Madman, you know, Terry's in my Scorpions tribute.
Right.
I'm in a tribute too.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mike does a great job doing Ozzy, and with Ozzy passing
Yeah.
recently,
Well, that makes sense.
we thought it was a good idea to have them on the bill with us.
Well, that's another thing I want to point out. We're all old enough that we saw the original bands.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing's going to bring them back.
No,
They're gone.
I know.
And so the only way that these younger people
Get exposed to their
it
music
is-
is by seeing these tribute bands.
Exactly.
Well, no, that's true. I'm not, like I say, I'm not knocking the bands because they got to be extremely talented musicians to pull that stuff off.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, Trower and all that stuff.
And
You know,
then-
nothing
and
against that.
Some people may think that Robin Trower doesn't really go with a Halloween show. It's a way different, you know, style of music.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the connection is that George was inspired
No, that
by
makes
Robin
sense.
Trower,
Sure.
and he sits in, you know,
Sure.
with them once in a while. So there's a connection there.
No,
And-
I can see the tie in now.
And speaking of Ozzy passing and having Sins on the show, we're probably going to pull Detroit Rock City out. You know, we were going to just do all the stuff that we did back in the day with Rick and Bill. No offense to Donnie Allen or anything that we did on the later albums, but we have Bill White, the original, well, the classic line drummer original. With us.
Yeah.
And so we thought it's the anniversary of this Don't Meddle with Evil album, so we're going to do all those songs and a handful of other songs that Bill and Rick played with us. And even though we didn't record it until the No One Gets Out album, we played Detroit Rock City almost from the beginning.
Sure.
And it was George's mom's favorite song. When we would ask Ma Julie, what's your favorite Halloween song, she would say Detroit Rock City. And we were like, thanks, Ma. Thanks, Ma.
Yeah, well, that was one of the ones you couldn't get away with not saying it was your own. You couldn't get away with that.
Everybody
they do that one.
But it was the reason I came to Detroit.
Sure.
It was George's mom's favorite song, so it made it in almost every show. And I got to play guitar on it back then, which I will not be doing this time.
No. Speaking
I don't have any guitars that are set up for me to play.
Speaking of coming to Detroit from Jersey, because you mentioned all these bands you saw there and the summer, the boardwalk and all that, get these things. When you first came to Detroit, I mean, here you are influenced by Kiss and the Detroit Rock City. What did you think of the music scene here as far as the clubs?
The first band that I saw when I came here was Muggsy. And Tommy Farless had just been in a bar fight and had a gash in his neck from under his ear all the way down to his rib cage, and it was all stitches. He looked like something out of a Frankenstein movie. And I went and saw him at I think it was called the Music Box on Plymouth Road.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I'm sitting right up front because I'm like, you know, I came from seeing bands like Salty Dog and Dave and Flossie and Rat Race Choir and all these bands on the East Coast. I couldn't wait to see a Detroit rock band, you know. And I'm sitting there and they come out and the lights go down and they come on and his first note, man, chills up and down my body, and two of his stitches popped and there's blood going down his neck, and I'm like, these guys are fucking great.
This is Detroit.
Joey Gayo's playing guitar and Tommy let that scream out. I was like, this is fucking awesome. And then, you know, after that it was Dame and Seduce, which came from Dame, and The Void, and I'm thinking, and oh my God, Almighty Strut with Jack singing.
The original,
the original before DC took over.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I made it. I'm in Detroit. Huh?
Did you ever see the Rockets?
I saw the Rockets open for Kiss at the Philadelphia Spectrum, and that was another reason I was like, oh, and the Rockets are from Detroit. So I had to come here. And Adrenaline with Dave Gilbert's brother, Mark Gilbert. Bittersweet Alley, they came along a little later for me.
Salem Witchcraft, another one.
Sweet Crystal. Teaser.
Toby Red. Teaser,
Toby Red.
So, in other words, were you impressed with the scene at the time? And the club scene?
And it's funny, there's a connection to Toby Red, too. After Chuck left us, we auditioned Chad Smith, and he was living in Pontiac at the time, and he came down, and it was still Bitch at the time.
Right.
He came down and he auditioned, and he killed it. We were like, oh my God, he loved us, we loved him, it was so good. All right, let's do this. I don't have a car. Can you guys come get me? We don't have any way to get up there to get you. And all of his cymbals were destroyed. I mean, they were like ready to fall apart. There were cracks and pieces missing.
It's just weird to think that these famous rock stars.
But he played the hell out of the drums.
Right.
And we couldn't get him. We were like, oh man, he's so good. And we wanted it to make it happen, and it didn't happen. And then like 2 months later, he's in Toby Red.
Right, yeah.
How'd that happen? They must have drove to pick his damn ass up in Pontiac.
I think they were sponsored too. They had an actual sponsor. Budweiser, I think, was sponsoring it for a while.
So he's with Toby Red for a little while, and then all of a sudden Toby Red breaks up.
Yeah.
And he's gone. And me and George had played a Halloween show, and we were back partying with some girls at some apartment. And George is in a bedroom with one girl, and I'm trying to avoid the girl that wanted to hook up with me because she wasn't my type. And So I'm out in the living room and I'm watching TV, and Jay Leno, The Tonight Show, is on. And all of a sudden, Higher Ground comes on, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm like, this song's kind of cool. And I'm like,
Who the hell's that?
what the fuck? That's Chad Smith.
How did you get it with
That
these
was our
guys?
drummer for like 5 minutes. Ah! Detroit. It was great.
Somebody actually broke out.
And
Somebody actually broke
and
out.
he has no idea about any of that. If anybody ever gets to interview him, then,
I've been trying. I've been trying.
Did you know the guys in Halloween? He probably wouldn't even remember Halloween because I don't know if he knows the jump from Bitch to Halloween.
Yeah, right.
But man, how great that was. And that's how I got out of hooking up with that girl. I was like, Chad Smith.
You had another.
And I
What
got
was
the
your
hell
other
out of there.
drummer that ended up being in a different band? Was it Godsmack or?
Yeah,
Megadeth
Tommy
or something?
Stewart, who was the drummer right after Bill White, and he played on a few of the versions of Don't Meddle with Evil. There's bonus tracks, and it was from a thing we put out in '89 called Vicious Demo. It was supposed to be a full album. We have like 6 or 7 other songs, but we were going on tour with Crimson Glory, and so we didn't have anything to sell with the current lineup, so we put out this Vicious Demo just on cassette and took them with us to sell at the merch booth. Well, Tommy Stewart was our drummer at the time, and he ended up meeting Sully, who was playing drums for Strip Mine, and we opened for them, and Space Hog, I think, was the other band.
Great band.
Huh?
I love Space.
Yeah, I think it was Space Hog and Strip Mine played at the Ritz, and Halloween opened the show. And Tommy and Sully got to talking, and then Tommy ended up leaving Halloween to go play with Jeff Blando, who is the guitar player for Slaughter and Vince Neil, in a band called Cody Lee. And Cody Lee was like a Class A cover band, and they were from Flint. Tommy was from Flint, and they played all over the country doing, like the top tier cover band stuff. And they ended up playing with Lillian Axe at a club called the Metro in Atlanta. And Gene Barrett was the drummer for Lillian Axe at the time. And he left Lillian Axe in the middle of the tour to go play with John Oliva from Sabotage in a band that John was putting together on the side called Dr. Butcher. And they were recording in Europe. And Gene left in the middle of the tour to go do this record with John Oliva. So Lillian Axe is in the middle of a tour and they don't have a drummer. Well, they saw Tommy play with Cody Lee opening for them, and Stevie Blaze went to him and said, hey, we need a drummer. Would you be interested in joining Lillian Axe? Otherwise our tour's shot. So he learned their whole set in like 2 days and joined Lillian Axe. He played on the Psycho Schizophrenia album, and then he ended up moving to Boston. While he was in Boston, he ran into Sully, and they started Godsmack together. And it's funny, everybody thinks Godsmack was a take on the Alice in Chains songs, but it wasn't. Tommy showed up to rehearsal one day with a cold sore, and Sully was like, Tommy's got herpes. And Tommy was like, fuck you. A couple days later, Sully showed up with a cold sore. And Tommy said, that's God smacking you back. And that's where the name Godsmack came from.
That's interesting.
And Tommy was in the band from the very beginning. He formed it with Sully. And they had, some kind of an issue, and he left the band. And Sully ended up playing all the drums on the very first Godsmack album. But by the time the album came out, they had kissed and made up. No herpes involved. And Tommy was back in the band, so his picture and his credit is on the album, but Sully played all the drums.
Okay.
So.
The last thing, because you had mentioned touring with Crimson Glory and all that, the original, or what people would consider the original classic lineup, you, Bill, Rick, and George. How much touring did you guys, or any touring did you guys do at that time outside of Detroit? And with who?
On our own, we headlined. We did like a 2-week run. Our agent at the time was Mark Hyman, who was also Quiet Riot's agent, so we got some pretty decent gigs. but we never got paid for half of them, so it didn't go very far. But we did a little bit of touring, and in fact, when we met Crimson Glory's manager, was while the classic lineup was still together.
Right.
In fact, we covered Mayday by Crimson Glory live a few times. We never recorded it, but we played it live. And in fact, in 1988, we recorded Don't Meddle with Evil live at Harpos. And we did the whole album like we're going to do this year. But we had a 48-track recording studio truck parked outside.
Mobile.
And a mobile recording studio. And we did a 5-camera video shoot. And we still have all that. We've never mixed the album. We just recently, like this past year, got it all put onto digital. So TJ has the stems, and we're hoping that we can mix that album and edit the video and put it out as a live album and video. But John Drenning from Crimson Glory, the original guitar player, engineered that recording. And Warren became our manager while the classic lineup was together. But what happened was this. Roosevelt still owned Blondies at the time, and he got a phone call from a guy named Nick Ferrara, who was a label guy from Atlantic Records. And he wanted to know about the talent in Detroit. And so Roosevelt told him about Halloween and Seduce had just gotten signed to IRS, so they were out of the question. The Meanies, and I think Scarlet, and a couple of other Detroit bands that had a following. Well, Roosevelt called me up and he said, "Hey, this guy from Atlantic Records, asked about you guys," and I gave him your name. His name's Nick Ferrara. And I was like, Atlantic Records, I know that our manager's been talking with them about getting Crimson Glory a deal with them because they were on Roadrunner Records. So I called Warren, our manager, and I was like, "Hey man, do you know Nick Ferrara at Atlantic in New York?" Yeah. And Warren, our manager, played golf with Jason Flom, who was like the head of Atlantic Records.
Wow.
He played golf with him like once a month. So he's like, yeah. He goes, let me get them on the phone right now. So he puts me on speakerphone, and he picks up another phone. Bing, 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 bing. He's got Atlantic Records on the phone, and I can hear them talking. And he gets Nick on the phone immediately, like no delay, like boom. Our manager's talking to the guy, and he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "I can't believe you're managing that band. I just talked to a club owner in Detroit." He goes, "I want to come see him. Set up a show, I'll fly in, let's get this done." He goes, "I would hate to miss an opportunity like we did with Crimson Glory when they were trying to sign with Atlantic, but they signed with Roadrunner." Warren goes, "Well, it's funny you mentioned that." He goes, "Hang on a second." Comes back to my phone, and he goes, "I'll call you right back." All right, cool. So I'm like, we're going to get a record deal. This guy's going to fly in and see us. We're going to showcase for Atlantic Records. It's going to be awesome.
Huge label.
I'm waiting, no phone call. Next day, no phone call. 3 days later, no phone call. A week later, no phone call. I can't get a hold of Warren. I'm trying for 3 weeks to get a hold of Warren, and I can't. I'm like, what? Did he die? Was he in a plane? What's going on? Did he fly to New York? I'm thinking he's working our record deal.
Right.
No news is good news, right?
Right.
No. Atlantic Records signed Crimson Glory for their third album. We lost our deal to them through our manager, who was also their manager. So Rick and Bill quit the band. We had just opened for Skid Row, packed house at the Ritz. We had just done a video shoot at the Premier Center in Sterling Heights, and they quit because, we lost our record deal. And Bill was going to go work for his brother-in-law doing auto repair, and Rick was trying to get custody of his daughter in a divorce settlement, and they were like, they wanted to break the band up, but me and George weren't ready to stop. So we recruited Billy Gray and Tommy Stewart and kept it going, and that's where the Vicious demo came from. And
Well, at that time when this was
Then we
possibly,
got the tour.
yeah, when this possibly was going down, had the band at any time when you said you did these, tours and opened up these groups, did you guys ever go out to L.A.? Did you ever go out to L.A., play the Whiskey or any of that kind of stuff, try and get in with that
No,
scene?
the only time I've ever been to the Whiskey was with Wrecking Crew playing on the same stage that Motley Crue played on.
Was it for financial reasons, or you just?
It just never happened.
Just
In
never
fact,
worked?
when Tommy Stewart was in the band, we got an offer to go play in Japan. Somebody wanted to bring us over there and do, I think it was like 2 weeks of dates all over Japan. And Tommy was like, "We're going to Japan." I'm like,
Budokan.
"I'll believe we're going to Japan when we're landing in Japan." And it fell through. It never happened, so we didn't get to go. We were invited, while Bill and Rick were still in the band, we were invited 4 times to play Wacken in Germany.
Wow.
It was the very first year that the festival happened. At the time, Monsters of Rock was the big festival.
Yeah.
Wacken was brand new. And Thomas wanted us to come over there, and Bill had a good paying job. He's like, "I'm not going to go fly over to Europe to play for 20 people at 10 o'clock in the morning in the rain and lose my job."
Right.
4 years we were invited, and we turned it down every time. And then it became the biggest festival on the planet, and now they don't want to talk to us.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Thomas. I wanted to go,
Right.
but we just couldn't afford to take that chance at the time. It was new, and we didn't know what it was going to become.
Okay. Well, kind of off topic with this and off topic with the upcoming show. Are you in the works, or have you been in the works of recording any new material? I know the other album's not that old, but are you guys still writing new music?
I mean, it came out in 2012, so it's pretty old. Our new album, Territory, came out in 2012. We had started recording a new album when Ben Harmson was still in the band, and we had a couple of guitar players come and go. Blake was in the band for a minute. TJ played with Ben for a little while. And we started writing an album, and then Ben ended up leaving the band. And so all the material that we started recording and writing with Ben, we just kind of, put it on the side because I didn't think it was, proper to, use his songs. And, George has had some health problems, and our current drummer, Rob Brugg, has been going through some health problems. I've had a hernia for 5 years, so it's kind of been just at a snail's pace. But TJ has been writing a bunch of amazing riffs for a new album, and as soon as this show's over, we're hoping to get in the studio. And I've got tons of lyrics, and TJ and I have always written really well together. All the stuff that we did in Ass was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bunch of songs that were never recorded that were written with Rick, written with Bill, written with Donnie Allen. So there's a huge library of material, but right now we're hoping to get in the studio and do some of TJ's stuff. And George and I have riffs too.
Any particular studio we know of, or is it just basement studio?
Took some college courses for recording, and he's really, really good. The best vocals that I've ever done have been with TJ at the controls. So we're probably gonna record with him. He wants to do drums at a studio, but we haven't picked one out yet. But everything else, guitars and vocals, he'll probably record. He's the one that remastered and remixed the Territory album. When Territory came out, we took a beating from the critics. It was too long, the vocals were dry, the guitars were dry. It got over-tweaked.
What critics? What critics are you?
Magazines in Europe.
Oh, really?
Said there were too many songs on it, and the vocals were too dry and not lively. And so TJ got in there and remixed it, and it's like a whole different album.
Yeah.
But a lot of people haven't heard the remix.
Right.
The remix is on Spotify and on YouTube, but the people that bought the physical CD, they still have the original mix.
Oh, is that the one you were selling at your last show?
Yeah, Territory.
Okay, no, I
So
know.
if you buy the album, you're getting the original mix. With,
Oh, okay,
with-
because that's the one I've got, and I
Yeah.
thought that was an updated mix,
No,
because I knew the album was older,
It-
but I
if-
thought that was an updated mix.
If you go to my YouTube page, you'll hear all the remixes that TJ did, and it's on Spotify.
Okay. Very last thing to bring up is, other than working on that and George's health and your health and getting older, do you have any
Who's
more?
old?
Well, older. I didn't say old, because I'm as old as you
I
are.
know,
Any more plans for the future as far as that? Because I heard something about that you might, I don't know, a couple of years down the line, want to do this same kind of idea for No One Gets Out. Is that something that is being talked of and discussed, or
Well,
is that too far away?
We did a 30th anniversary for No One Gets Out at the Token a couple of years ago, because that album came out in '91.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2021, we wanted to do the 30th anniversary for it, but that was right in the heat of COVID.
COVID, yeah.
So we couldn't do it. We were going to do New Year's Eve of 2021, and then John decided not to do it, so we ended up doing it in March of 2022, which was not the 30th anniversary. It was a couple months after the fact. But yeah, I mean, I have no plans to stop. Look at Rob Halford. Look at Alice
yeah.
Cooper. You know, I mean, they're killing it, and you know.
Hey, as long as you can keep doing it, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Especially because you're bringing in such young, fresh talent
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and you're still bringing this music, whether it's from the 80s, 90s, or whatever, to a new generation, keeping it alive and all that. To me, that's exciting to see that, because most of those bands, they gave up. They gave up. They said, "Screw it, I'm done. I'm out of here." And you're carrying on a tradition that people know Halloween in this
and
town. They
the
do, and they
tools
should.
that are available now with the internet, you know, to be able to get out there. And you know, in the past, you had to have a record label, you
Mhm.
had to go on tour, you had to have a video on MTV for people to know who you were. But now there's YouTube,
Right.
now there's TikTok, now there's, you know, all these outlets where you can get out there and do it. And you know, it's like, I would love for a younger generation to, you know, to get to know us, because I mean, look at Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, Mushroom Head, you know, Ghost,
Yeah.
all these other bands that are doing the same kind of theme that Alice Cooper started.
Yes,
and
yeah.
Kiss followed up, and
Yeah.
you know, and King Diamond, and then you know, we were doing it. And you know, it's funny, when Halloween came along, a lot of the labels that we talked to, they were like, "Oh, Halloween, the name."
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, we go to Hamburg, Germany, the home of Halloween, and we packed a club there because people know the difference. They knew it was us, they knew our material, but here in America, everybody's confused by the name. But it's like, I've said this till I'm blue in the face. What other band has a license to be exactly what their name says they are? Halloween says it all. We can be anything. I mean, we can be scary, we can be military, we can go out in our jeans and t-shirts, we can be pirates or ghosts or whatever the hell we want to be. We got together at Halloween time. We have an image.
They throw candy out at the
Mhm.
We
show.
throw
Yeah,
we
yeah.
throw candy out. I mean, that's enough
I know, I
to
love
bring kids
that.
in.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But it's like all these other bands are living on their image, but their names have nothing to do with their image. Alice
Mhm.
Cooper, you wouldn't know his stage show until you know Alice Cooper.
Right.
Kiss, you wouldn't know anything about their image until you
saw
knew
the stage.
Kiss.
Right. Yeah.
Halloween, you kind of know what you're getting before you walk in the door.
Right. Right.
You know, and who doesn't love Halloween?
Right.
And candy.
Well, that's the other
And
thing.
candy.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing you took on too, which I thought was really, really cool. It's like, to us, Halloween. Every day is Halloween. Every day is
We
Halloween.
still running?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
at 54 minutes.
All right. Every day to us is Halloween, which brings me to my final thought. We talked about how Chuck Burns from Seduce
Right.
was the first drummer in Halloween, and we're doing all these old songs, but we covered the Seduce song Halloween. What a full circle moment. We asked them permission, they gave us permission to cover the song, and we're hoping to have Chuck Burns
Yeah.
come up and do the song Halloween with us at the Harpos show. The only hiccup is that his brother just passed away, so
Right.
we don't know if he'll do it or not, but we're hoping that he will. We just think that that would be an amazing thing to have Chuck
Oh, yeah.
come back after all these
Oh,
years
yeah.
and play, you know.
I think that would, in my mind, that would be
song.
bigger than Chad Smith coming
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, it actually would.
I think
Because
so.
Chuck was there from the beginning.
Right.
And we named the band a different name
Yeah.
because of that song,
Yeah.
and then we end up covering and recording that song, and then he comes back to play it. I mean, you know, you can't write a Hollywood script better than that.
Yeah, and you
But-
should.
But
They
we
should make a movie
we
of
don't
it.
know if he will.
Right.
We hope we will.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Again, folks, Halloween night, Halloween, Harpos, playing.
With Evil 40th anniversary.
Yes, don't miss it.
42nd.
Don't miss it.
42nd anniversary of the band.
Yep.
Bill White will
Yep.
be playing drums. Rick will be there in spirit. He'll be
Yeah.
out on the road driving a tour bus somewhere. George Neal and myself.
Yeah, it's
TJ
too bad they don't
Richardson,
do
Don
those.
Gurrier. It's
It's
going to be a great
too bad
show.
they don't do what they used to do back in the old days where they simulcast it, because you guys had several simulcasts.
Yeah,
That would
we
be
did
really
4
cool.
of those.
Yeah.
And
Well, anyway.
we're going to have a costume contest, so
Oh.
dress up, cash prize, and one of the prizes, check this out. If I were a fan, I would think this is better than the cash prize. We're doing a sexy contest, a sexy costume contest, and a scary costume. 2 first prizes. We're going to let the sexy costume prize winner decide if they want the cash or the other prize. The other prize is Halloween. We'll come to your house and play a party at your house.
Wow.
Sweet.
That would be.
Birthday party.
That would be the prize I'd want.
The only thing, the only stipulation, it can't be on Halloween.
Obviously.
Because, you know, that's like when we play our shows.
Yeah. Could it be April Fool's Day?
It could.
Friday the 13th?
It could.
There you go.
Full
Well, there you go,
moon.
folks. You've heard
Full
it right
moon.
from,
I'm
full
his
moon.
friend. I can't even get him to do that.
Yeah, no doubt, you know.
We will
well,
come and play at your house.
Well, I'm hoping I'll win that prize because I got, I might
Got
have
plenty of
some
room
room.
down here.
Yeah, and I did clear it up for that. Brian, I want to thank you so much for doing this, taking the time to come out tonight. Like I say, I know you're really busy and you got this show coming on and you got rehearsals to get back to and all that. Thank you so much, man. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure
for
talking to
having
you.
me.
A pleasure having you out for the 3rd time and stuff. And you know, I wish you the best. I wish the band the best. Just keep rocking, man. Just keep
I
rocking.
appreciate you having me, and I hope everybody will come out and check out the show. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Full stage show. Harpos used to be our home away from home, and we can't think of a better place to do it. Don't be afraid. Well, be a little afraid, but not of Harpos.
It's not
Harpos.
1990 anymore.
That's right.
No, they've got good security there now.
They do.
They do. It's a lot
And
better.
Roosevelt's a great.
Yeah.
great
Oh
guy.
yeah. Roosevelt's great.
He needs the support.
Absolutely. All right.